You're listening to the Empowered Divorce Podcast, where you practice being the chooser in your life again, one day at a time. Thanks for joining me. Hello, my amazing, beautiful listeners. Welcome. Thank you for joining me today. As promised, last week we talked with Morgan Ellsworth, and hopefully you walked away with a little bit more clarity, hope, ideas, validation. Today I am airing an episode once again that I recorded with Alana Gordon on the Choose to Be podcast, where we had her daughter Hannah join us, and continuing the conversation in the series that we were doing over there around betrayal trauma and how it impacts the family, how it impacts children. And we had Hannah come and join us to share her story. Like I mentioned, it was one of those conversations as I'm listening to her speak, I was like, oh my gosh, I wish that I had heard her and an episode like this when I was in the middle of it to help me create some internal shifts that would have, I think, guided me to show up a little bit differently, or just, I think, look at my children a little bit differently, understand them a little bit differently. And that's my hope for you all today. So without further ado, here is the episode with Hannah Gordon. We have a special guest with us today. We have with us my daughter, Hannah Gordon. And it's funny because Hannah, you coming on, I think I've said this before on our podcast, but Hannah gives me a hard time about a fake podcast voice.
I was just speaking that literally as you started talking. I was like, I don't know if I can do this.
I know. And so when I start, like, I can hear myself doing it, but I'm like, I don't know how else to start. So here you are with your mom and her fake podcast voice. But we are so glad you came on today. Last week, as I said, we had someone come on the podcast who talked about kids and families and the impact and how it's so much more than just the parents going through it. And as she was talking, I messaged Amie and I was like, I want Hannah to come on if she's willing. So the fact that you're willing, thank you, because it takes a level of vulnerability. And you are one of my favorite humans on this entire planet. And I have watched you go through so much hard as a result of all of the hard that I've gone through, and me and your dad have gone through in your life. And so I think just hearing your experiences and whatever you're willing to share is going to be so valuable to our listeners to have an understanding and see what that actually looks like. And I think one thing I want to put out there to all of our listeners is this is Hannah's experience. So this is not going to be the same as your child. And every child out there is going to have a different experience. So Hannah, you have the freedom to just talk about for you what that was like. And then those listening can take what works for them in their situations. But everybody's different. So I just want to lay that as a foundation. And again, just thank you for being here.
Mm-hmm.
Auntie Amie is grateful you're here too. I really am. And I told you before we hit record, gosh, if I had your voice to speak to me 12 years ago, I know that it would have been so comforting, beneficial, informative, just all the things. So I too echo everything your mom just said as well. It's an honor to have you join us today and talk about your experience. I'm going to just ask you right out of the gate, just to give everybody a little bit of a taste of Hannah. Can you just tell us what are your 3 favorite things right now that you love? Like if you were, here's my top 3 favorite things right now, and your main reason for agreeing to do this with us.
Ooh, I'm actually, my first one is going to be one that I literally showed Amie right when I joined the Zoom meeting. Neatos, they're my favorite thing ever on planet Earth.
If you're on YouTube, you can see what she's holding up. My stepkids are obsessed with those too.
I bring them everywhere. I have 3, and my mom bought 1, 2 accidentally came, and I made her give me the other one. It's very fun. I do color guard. That's my other favorite thing I do ever. I live for it. My last one is probably my family. My mom was out of town last week, and it was really sad. So I'm happy that this week we have almost everybody back together. And so that's my top 3. The reason why I decided to do this is my mom texted me, and I was literally sitting, it was like 2 minutes before I was leaving school, and she texted me, she's like, do you want to do a podcast? And I was like, now? She was like, no. Later this week, I was like, yeah, I'm down. I don't think I have like a legitimate sit down reason why I want to do this. I think just like sharing my story just feels validating in and of itself, and I like talking about it. And I feel like there's not very many outlets where you can just sit here, because I'm not one of those people who will like tell my story to the first person I've met. I feel like I need someone to be like, so what is this, for me to actually feel like I can talk about it. So I don't really tell a lot of people, but once you get me to talk about it, I'm so happy to talk about it. It feels amazing to talk about it. So just any outlet that I get to talk about it, I'm super happy to.
I love that. Okay, I'm going to challenge something though, because you're sitting here saying, I love to talk about this and share my story, but I imagine that wasn't always the case. So
No.
can you just share however comfortable you are with your journey to be able to be here right now and saying, I am comfortable sharing my story and my experience.
I honestly, it's been how many years
Yeah.
since it's been like a challenge my entire life, well, my entire conscious life. And I think that the point where I could really see it impacting me the most was when I was sophomore year. So that had to be, I was what, 14, 15? And then that's when everything became a reality and when I really had to face it. And it was not easy to talk about. I don't think I told people for the first couple months. It felt shameful to talk about, and it
Mhm.
felt like it was just mine to carry, like it wasn't anybody else's, and it wasn't fair of me to put that on other people. And I still think that that in other aspects manifests with me today, but I don't think it was until I started working with you, Amie, that I started like figuring out what was my story and what wasn't my mom's story. And it made me realize that none of this has anything to do with me, and I don't need to be worried about like how other people perceive it and how it would impact other people by telling them. I could just talk about it. And then once I started telling people without a level of shame, it made me realize that no one's going to judge me for the things that have happened to me because it wasn't my fault. And I think
Mhm.
realizing that, and then like just like the more that I talked about it, the easier it was to like realize that again, it wasn't my fault.
Yeah. So at one point, you did absorb that as your fault. Am I hearing that correctly then?
I think that I've always internalized this stuff that have happened around my parents, like ever since I was younger, as my fault. I think that's just natural for a child to do. But yeah, I always absorbed my dad's whiplash and my parents fighting, because they wouldn't fight in front of us, but I could tell it was happening, as being my fault somehow. And I think that was just something I just grew up with.
Mhm.
I love that you bring that up because that is so accurate. That is universal, that kids internalize the things as their fault. Even if they don't consciously think, oh, this is my fault, they still run with that belief underneath. And so I this is, I think, why so valuable you do that one-on-one work. Because like you said, you worked with Amie and you were able to start separating that and start realizing some of those things that were running underneath. And yeah, when everything came out the first time, you were probably 8 years old.
I was 6. Yeah.
You were 6. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So when everything came out the first time, you were so little. And even that, you were, and I think generally so many kids are, as I call kids barometers, but you, Hannah, you were so in tune with the energy of the house. You were so in tune with where the feelings were. So even if like our fighting or my hurting was behind closed doors, you would pick up on it. And you picked up on it and you carried that for many years until you were at a place that A, mom and dad stuff became big that you had to deal with again. And then B, you were older and ready to do some of that other work.
Mhm.
This is why a lot of times, and I remember saying this too, I was so good at hiding it. So it was a betrayed partner. And as a mom,
You think you're so good at hiding
you're
it.
so good, right? And no one knows. And my kids had no idea. But as we're listening to you, and as my children have even validated that too, like as a little girl, you knew.
Yeah, well, because it makes me think about it. Because I was sitting in a lunchroom with my friend the other day, and she's like fake smiling, and I can sit there and I can tell that she's fake smiling. And I've known this girl for like 2 years, and I can tell that she was fake smiling. And even though your like children are like babies, they've lived with you for the past however many years. They know you. They can see you. It's like you can see that your friend's off. It's your child. They can tell that you're off.
Mm-hmm.
Mom's podcast voice.
Yeah, exactly. Mom's podcast voice. Well, and I think that as parents, sometimes we can fall into that trap of gaslighting our kids, of being like, no, I'm fine. Everything's great. I'm fine. And so I can remember times of doing that. And I can also remember times of going, yeah, mom's not okay, but I'm okay. And it's funny looking back because I don't know that I could have done it much differently than what I did. But I just look at you and your ability, Hannah, to be able to put this into words. It's pretty remarkable.
So, can you tell us a little bit about, and again, your level of comfort? What did feel confusing? What was confusing for you? What did feel scary? And is there anything in that you wish that your parents, those adults, understood at the time for you?
It's hard because I think of this like, I don't know if I should call it a recovery process or whatever, because it's constant, but I had my stuff from like age like 6 to 12 and then 14, or like 6 to 14 and like 14 and on. I think of those as two very different periods where I was at, because the first period I didn't know anything. I was actually thinking about this the other day, and I was like, wow, I was in a state of literally, because what can you tell a 6-year-old? Like mommy and daddy are in a rough place and daddy's gonna go live somewhere else. What else do you tell a 6-year-old? Like, dad made mistakes. Like, what else do you tell them? But then when I was 14, I needed to know it all. And I think like I wanted those answers more and more the older that I got. But I like needed to know it when I was older. So I think that when I was a kid, you can't really expect to give the child anything more than like daddy's gonna go live somewhere else. But when I was 14, I think that a lot of the confusion that I had was really just coming from like a root place of like, I'm not worthy. If he is making these choices and if he's choosing to do this, what am I not doing? Like, why am I not enough for you not to make these choices? And confusion as to like, why does this have to happen? Why does it have to happen to me? And I think I still have this like to this day a little bit, because I was thinking, I was like, why is he still on his path to recovery? Why can't it just be all better? And I think I've had that thought over and over again my entire life of why can't it just be better? Yeah, and I'm self-aware enough to go back to the same answer of like, life's a journey. You're never gonna get to this plateau where everything's beautiful and perfect. It's always gonna be moving back and forth. And I think that answer is frustrating. But I think that, yeah, it was just, there was a lot of confusion. And I think I look back on it and I don't know what could have been done to make me feel less confused. Because I think you and dad did a really, really good job navigating that. I do think back to when he first told me, and I don't regret this whatsoever, but when he first told me when I was 14 that everything was happening again, I told him to get out of the car. And I broke down, and my mom was sitting next to me. And she was like, "What would make you feel better?" And I was like, "Fuck." And I texted him and I was like, "Can I have money for books?" And he sent me, and I spent my heart out in books, and it did make me feel better for a short time. I don't know what else could have been done better. I think all of it was really crucial to my healing, and I don't think I would go back and wish that none of it would have happened, because it all made me where I am like right now. And I think that it was hard, but it was good hard. It was necessary hard. For my path in my life, it was necessary hard.
I feel like there's going to be a bunch of betrayed partners' heads exploding right now, hearing you say that in a really good, beautiful, empowering way. But I would imagine as a mom, if I'm putting myself back in that space, not believing that. Are you for real? Like, come on. Are you really for real about that? So can you just tell me, like, why do you feel that way? Why do you feel like it's been a necessary part of your journey? What are you getting from this?
I think I think I've talked to my mom a lot about this. I hear her story a lot. And I've done a lot of work trying to make my story my own story. And I've thought about this. And I think that everybody has their walks of life that they have to go through. And I have a lot of hurt that came from my father. And it's still active wounds that I see like bleeding into every single part of my life. But like, I love my dad has hurt me a lot, but I love him with my whole entire heart. Like, I love him so much. And I know that that is what came with him was that hurt. And I think that I wouldn't be where I am right now if it didn't happen to me. And I think I would take that. I would take the hurt for where I am right now. And I think it takes doing the work I have done. And I don't want to like sit all high and mighty, but I think it has taken like doing the work that I have done right now to be able to sit here and say, yeah, like I would do it again. And it doesn't take away any of the hurt that I have felt. And it doesn't take away any, like, just that. It doesn't take away any of the hurt that I felt of me, like, I'm just sitting there and like thinking of like putting myself back in like that first week and saying this all to like 14, 15-year-old Hannah that had to go through that. I think I can see I'm sitting on the other end and I can see all of that. And I think that, yeah.
You're speaking post-traumatic growth language.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. This is that those moments where we can look back and go, to your point, it's not going to erase the pain, but who I am in spite of it on the other side, as you say. I like that version. And that is something I know about you is that you do like those versions of you because you've worked so freaking hard for that.
And I think that, yeah, and I think that's just so validating to be able to sit here and be okay with what, like, not okay with what's happened to me, but okay with going through that. Like, do you get where I'm coming from that? It's so validating to be able to be like, I did that and I went through the hard and I am so grateful for where I am right now.
This is why I was so excited you were willing to do this because, again, mom going through this, worry that my kids' lives are going to fall apart. They're never going to be sane. They're going to be ruined. Like, these are all the things that I thought, okay? They're going to be ruined. They're never going to be the same. They're going to have effed up relationships. They're going to have an effed up relationship with their dad. I might screw them up. They're never like blah, 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 all the things. Life ruined. Innocence ruined. It felt very real and very true. And I know that a lot of my clients say that to me too and express that fear, especially if they're taking it to another step and divorcing. So the fact that you're sitting here saying what you're saying, I can't imagine. And this is why I said it to you earlier. If I had your voice to just say, oh my gosh, maybe not, way earlier, it would have been so hopeful because it felt very hopeless. The way that you're talking and how you're presenting yourself feels hopeful. And I just really appreciate that.
Everything you just said, Amie. And I think something I want to highlight is, Hannah, you're sitting here where your parents' relationship wasn't like, it wasn't all roses. And sometimes people have this idea of, okay, we went through the hard and then it got better. And so then, Hannah, you just, yes, you had the hard with your parents, and then they both jumped into recovery work and healing work. And so you only had that one hard, right? Like, you laugh, right? Because yeah, a lot of your life from the age that you could really remember and create memories, there was a lot of ups and downs and back and forth. And healing was messy and raw. And sometimes it was so, and I'm going to speak from my experience, sometimes it was so beautiful and empowering. And other times it was hopeless and dark. And so you didn't have like your parents just had this happily ever after and everything got good. That wasn't your story. Your story was your parents had good and then bad and then good and then bad, and then you didn't know if your parents would be together, and then they weren't together, and then they were together, and then they weren't together, and, like, you had this huge all of these uncertainties, and so I think I wanna take away some of the myth of those who are listening. If you're thinking, "Yeah, but her parents were really great, and it just like, her mom was a therapist, her dad was a coach, and they just had this happily ever after," like, that wasn't our story, and our story is still living and breathing today, and therefore, Hannah, your story is still living and breathing, and I just think you said that really beautiful of, like, you said, "Yeah, there's still stuff that's bleeding into other areas of my life, and yet I'm okay."
Mm.
Like, that message, Hannah, was really it's really helpful, and I even think even for our betrayed partners, like, going out of the role of parents, just them as humans, that they're in their hard and difficult and mess, and that it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay, and they're okay type. I just think that message can go in multiple ways out to the world.
So a couple questions that I feel like I worried about and was concerned about with my children. I worried that my girls, especially, and I learned since that it's girls and boys, will they struggle to trust in a relationship, a romantic relationship, or trust in general? Will they struggle to trust the world? How is this going to shape the way that they are in relationship? Is there anything you would like to offer in regards to that impact?
Mm, I actually thought about this. I think in my own relationship, I think on like the aspect of trust, for me, and I don't know if this is because like I read everything very energetically. Like when something was off with my dad, like I knew, like I could tell. And I think a lot of the time I would call myself crazy and I'd be like, that's so weird. But then I'd come back 2 months later and I'd be like, that's why not. But I could know energetically with him at the very least. So in my own relationship, I know it doesn't happen, but I know that when something's off, I know that it's off. I haven't had an issue on like the trust scale. I do notice other aspects where I'm realizing how I'm showing up. And then I'm like, oh, that's because I didn't feel safe to show up that way.
Mm.
And I think I didn't notice it until I'm trying to think of a certain I do this, I get on the high of, like, what's going on, and then I wanna stay there, and I don't wanna think of the hard and I'm trying to put myself back there. I think that, yeah, I will realize that ways that I've shown up are ways that I was shown by my parents that are the ways that you show up, or that I showed up with my dad to protect myself from getting hurt, and I don't think I would have ever seen that if I hadn't gone and hadn't worked with you, Amie, and I hadn't gone through therapy. I don't think that I would have seen that that's why I was showing up the way I was showing up, which is why I literally tell everybody, I'm like, "Just talk to somebody." I'm like, I love why you always question why, and when I was working with you, Amie, it really made me mad. I didn't like it. I don't like it at all. But I think that, like, that why really, really challenged my brain, and it showed me where everything was coming from, and it really prepared me in my own relationships where where it was going
Mhm.
and how I could flip it. I really would love to think of like a reason in my head. And I know why. I know why I can't. Again, because I want to stick to like the happy. And I honestly think that's probably a reason in and of itself. Of like, I don't want to go and think about the hard. I think this is actually probably common, like regular, like the human brain. But I don't want to go and I don't want to like put myself back in the hard because it really hurt.
Mhm.
There's like a block. I've always done this. I've always blocked the hard from my brain.
Mhm. You're aware of it, and that's what I'm hearing right now even. I'm hearing what you're saying, tell me where I'm wrong. You develop self-trust, so the trust in your body and your intuition and that sensing something feels off. I'm hearing you say, "I just learned to trust it and believe it." And you have worked really hard at that. And then the ability to be self-aware. And so to your point, when you work with someone that can reflect things back, that can push your brain a little bit and help you see the things that you don't really want to see, that parts of us don't want to see, it increases your ability to be self-aware and more attuned. So as I'm listening to you, that's what's standing out is your development of self-trust and self-awareness doesn't necessarily, and it won't prevent hard things or hard relationships, but I'm hearing that you're better equipped and prepared to navigate that now. Am I getting that
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my mom's been a big part in that of like trust your gut. Your gut is it's always leading you in the right direction. And I think that even with like things with my dad that have been a little bit more recent, and I look back and I was like a month later, I was like, that is why that literally was happening. And I could feel it. But I ignored it because I have been taught by him. And in my head, I want to be like in the nicest way possible, but in kind of a little bit of a way, I don't want to mean it in the nicest way possible. Also, this because I've also done a lot of work with my dad, and he is. I amend him on this because he lets me. He's done this a lot over my recovery. Is he lets me be mean to him, which I think was very important to me to like learn to take up space, especially like in my own healing. But like over the years, being like him telling me, no, you're crazy. And then I'm like, I'm not. I'm really not. And I think my mom's been a huge help to that, being like, you're not crazy. Trust yourself. There's a reason for everything. And maybe it's not the reason you were thinking of originally in your head, or maybe it was, but there is a reason for everything your body is giving you.
Yeah. Mm. Give me goosebumps.
I'm totally biased here. Like, I will fully admit that.
Well, I might be too.
We're both totally biased to you, Hannah, but you have such a depth to you. Like, I'm just listening to what you're saying, and compared to a lot of 18-year-olds out there, the depth to who you are. And I'll just say, like, when I see women on their journey and go through this and be willing to face it, the depth that it brings to them as a soul, as a human, like those are the people I want to hang around now because I like being with people of depth. And just what you are sharing really, like, you have a depth. And unfortunately, that depth was hard earned through army crawling through pain and mud and yuck. And yet, here you are in a place of feeling more of that self trust and more of that resolve and more of that, I'm okay. This is beautiful.
Yeah.
So what would you tell one or two or however many the hell you want, but what would you tell betrayed partners right now? What do you want the mamas to know? And then what would you tell? I know we don't probably have a lot of teenage young adults listening, but we'll pretend. What would you want them to know?
I think for betrayed partners, just thinking about like what you said is that like in the beginning, like worrying about your child is that your kid's gonna be okay. I think that you need to give them room to feel what they need to feel. I don't think I felt legitimate healing around my dad again until he let me be mean to him. And I know that it feels mean to me, but it was literally just stating exactly why he hurt me and how that hurt me, and to be a little passive aggressive when I needed to be, but like letting him have it because he deserved it. And it was really healing to me. And I think so, just like letting your child do that and like letting them do what they need to do to heal. I think my mom gave me a lot of, I don't know if it was intentional, but she gave me, and it probably was, I don't know, no one's gonna do it. But she gave me a lot of room to like be where I needed to be in that exact moment. And that was really good for me. But she also she never left me alone.
Mm.
And I know that that was what I needed. I needed to not be left alone in like my pain.
Mm.
And also therapy was also really nice. And like, it's just the love. But that was cool. And then to just like people my age, like teenagers going through that, is I think that it's really easy to like go and think I am the only person on this entire planet that is having this feeling. I'm so alone, and you isolate yourself. And I think that was like the worst thing that I could do for myself. I don't, again, I didn't tell people until like months after. And I was like, and I was doing guard, and my coach came up to me and she was like, "You look miserable." And I was like, "Gee, thanks." And she was like, "Really? You don't look happy and you don't look like you need to be here." And I started she's like, and I started sobbing, and I was like, "I do want to be here." And she was like, "What is happening?" And I didn't tell her because I didn't want to tell her. But she was like, "Go tell somebody." So I told one person. And even just that was amazing. And I think it was really hard. But it was amazing. And I think that it feels so isolating, and to just remember that you're not alone. There is somebody else who they may not be able to relate to every single little detail that you've ever felt. They can relate to at least one little detail. And it is so much better than feeling alone against all your peers. I never felt alone when it came to my mom or my siblings, but I felt so alone for those couple months amongst my peers and my friends. And I think once I got the shame away from telling, like being open with my story, it was so much easier to just breathe and exist.
Mm. Oh gosh. Like physical responses, you said that. Wow.
I have one more question for the dads who have harmed and who hear this. What do you want them to know?
I don't know why that's so hard. I think if it was me and like the epitome of my pain, like looking at my dad, I wanted him to know how much I was hurting. I wanted him to see and feel and breathe my pain. I wanted him to know how much I was hurting, and I wanted him to just hold it. And I think that once he did, that was amazing. Like that, I remember sitting in this office, but like in the one that you're sitting in, I remember sitting there with him, and it was so hard to get out. But like once I did, I didn't feel better, but I felt something being lifted.
Mm.
And that I think that I'm saying this off. I don't know if defensive is the right word, but I'm defensive for those girls that I know are hurting. And I'm like remembering where I was, and I'm like wanting to relieve that pain of all these people that I don't know. I think that just remembering that your daughters love you, or your children love you. They're just hurting. And all you can do is hold that with them and be there for them if that's what they want. But that's all I wanted, is I wanted him to know how much I was hurting. And that I loved him, even though I didn't want him to know that. But I do, and I love my dad so much. And again, you have to be sitting in a certain place right now to say it. I wouldn't change anything that made me who I am right now.
I wish I had a pen and paper to write the phrase you said, but you said like I didn't feel better, but I felt lighter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that statement was so powerful. And I think that's so accurate, because sometimes there's this idea or this message that I will feel better if I say these things.
Mhm.
And you're so right, Hannah, that so often you don't feel better, but you do feel lighter. And then you get a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter till one day you realize that, oh, actually, I am starting to feel better. So you just phrased that so beautifully. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think I can look back on the last couple of years, last 4 years, and pinpoint an exact time where I started it felt easier to move about my day. Like, I just I can't pinpoint, where, I can pinpoint little moments, like that point when I sat down and talked to my friend about what was happening, and when I first sat down with my dad and had a legitimate conversation, and then when we had our first family trip after, and then when I went to Portland with my dad just a couple of months ago, I can pinpoint those like monumental points for me, but I can't pinpoint a moment where I feel like everything is better because it was just okay.
Well, I mean, you and I did go shopping in the DR with Dad's credit card. That was pretty cool.
That so good at that.
That was pretty fun.
So not like I was floating a bit I was just floating around. I was like, honey, this is great.
They call it retail therapy for a reason.
My favorite, actually. It's my favorite.
Right? Oh my gosh. I love it. I love it. Again, your voice, your conviction, your honesty, your vulnerability, all the things. Beautiful. Again, I think I'm biased too. I think you're an incredible human that I adore. And I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
I get to go in the other room and now hug Hannah.
I know I'm jealous.
Amy's across multiple states, but I'm going to come hug you, Hannah, after this. Thank you. Truly, this is a gift for anyone who listens to this. And I hope if it resonates with you and you have a child that you feel like would resonate with this message, sharing it with them so that they can hear that they're not alone, because it can feel so isolating. And when you're in your teenage years, especially, your peer relationships are so important. That when you feel like there's this huge wall between you and your friends, it's even more painful. So thank you again, Hannah, for all listening today.
I really hope that you loved that conversation as much as I did, listening to Hannah and her explain her experience and talk about those different things. One thing I'll validate right out of the gate that does not fall deaf on my ears, and because part of my experience is not having my children have a father, where Hannah was talking about her dad, they don't have a dad that is owning, being accountable, and allowing for that process to happen for them. And that piece I want to validate before I end this conversation, because you better believe that came up for me while I was listening to her talk about her dad. Even though it pricked on those pain parts 100%, I still wanted you to hear, because one of the things that I've had to work so hard on, that my therapist has had to work really hard on with me, is separating what I need to own through the betrayal with my children versus what my ex needs to own. Now, I have an ex that isn't owning any of that for my children. So it has been really important for me to understand and see that they need both. And I can't do the job of my ex and heal the parts of my children that is his responsibility to help make amends. Does this mean that my children have not been able to move forward and thrive and heal in ways without that? No, they have. They continue to. It is a journey. There is no arrival. You're right, all the things that you've heard me say all the time. But more importantly, listening, even this conversation with Hannah, and as I was listening to it when we actually recorded, I was reminding myself, oh, this is what his part is, not my part. Because a lot of the things that she was talking about that her dad Luke would do, I tried to do, or I found myself thinking I should do. Again, just taking a step back and going, oh, okay, what am I trying to fix here in my child? What am I trying to help them heal from? And is that mine? And most of the time, y'all, it wasn't. And I needed to take a step back and allow them to go through their process. All of my children are navigating it differently, but when you take a step back and it allows your child to navigate in the way that they want to or need to, whether it's with the other parent or not. It's very nuanced. It's very individual. This is Hannah's very individual story. Try to take away from this conversation what helps you as a mom and how it might help you to continue having an empowered divorce and help children have their own sense of empowerment without you trying to get in the mix of it. Remember that conversation way back with Terry Cole on the high functioning codependent? This is where I had to do a lot of shifting, is stepping out of my children were harmed, they have injury, they have experience, they have impact, and what is my part to own and what isn't. And I'm just going to tell you, taking a step back around the parts that aren't mine, not easy, very hard. That's why I needed my therapist to help me walk through that. I don't think I was supposed to do it alone. And I don't want you all to think that you're supposed to do it alone. So this is one of those episodes I think can really bring some stuff up. Write it down, slow it down, take it to your professional. I think this is good stuff to process. Is guilt coming up? Because that was one thing that I noticed, just prick again, is, oh gosh dang it, I wish I would have handled it differently with my oldest in this way, and I wish I could go back. The power is in the repair. If you're noticing guilt with the shouldas, slow that down and remind yourself you did everything that you knew to do at the time. Like Maya Angelou says, when we know better, we do better, but the power is in the repair. Being aware of what is possible, we can step into that today. It is never, ever too late when it comes to doing something different with our kids, showing up different with our kids. It's never too late. It's never too late for them to go deeper and heal. If we can provide an opportunity to open that door in the way that we can, in the way that we can own, if that's what's coming up for you, beautiful. If you're looking at your child differently, or it's bringing up, wow, I didn't realize that maybe that's what my child might be carrying, beautiful. Slow it down, get some clarity around it for yourself first, and see if that child is willing to step into a conversation with you when they're ready. Because both of you get to be the choosers of your life. And both of you and your children get to start creating the life that you want as you support them, because you can. Take care, everybody.